all of those organisations can acquire the right skills, then Blackpool and the Fylde Coast is going to be a better place because everything's going to be delivered in a better quality. We're going to make more money. More money means people have more facilities, more resources, we have more people paying council tax, which means more public facilities too. You can see the kind of knock-on effect of doing that. But apprenticeships are really important for a second reason, which is that they are really popular. Employers like them, and young people and adults choosing them find them really good. So for those, that's the first reason why it needs to be central to our planning. The second, if you think about our second objective, which is the occupational curriculum, there is no better way of the direct relationship with employers and the partnership with learners than apprenticeships. They are the Rolls Royce of technical learning. Why? Because you get the perfect mixture of workplace application, theoretical and practical learning, and the whole kind of package of how education works with employers to deliver a good outcome is at its optimal when apprenticeships are delivered well. Everything else is good, so doing a really high quality classroom qualification is great, but it's not at the level of excellence in terms of technical learning that an apprenticeship is at. So for that second reason, it's important to us. We come to the third one. We talk all the time about our commitment to investment in facilities, your skills, and our partnerships. Again, apprenticeships are at the centre of that. The engagement with employers is more significant than in any other form of learning. The need to have that backed up by great facilities here that simulate the workplace is really, really important. But that, what we call the triple expertise that you have, don't forget, experts in your subject, experts in pedagogy, and experts in understanding your learners, apprentices and students. Those are at the heart of our expertise as an organisation. And again, those three things come together in apprenticeships in a way they don't always come together as perfectly in other areas. So, number 4, the strategic plan is high quality. So, pursuit of excellence and a fantastic learning experience. Why do so many people come through an apprenticeship and say, it's the first time I found the thing that I love, or I've suddenly found that I'm good at something, I just found the apprenticeship found the best in me. They may not use exactly those words, but you'll all have heard people speak in that way. You'll have heard parents say that about their young people, that once they got their apprenticeship, that's when they blossomed. You'll hear employers talk about how mature people are at the end of an apprenticeship compared to coming in through other routes. You'll all have heard these stories, and they're true, because it is an excellent experience from the point of view of both the employer and the apprentice when it's delivered well. We have a challenge on quality though. We've done really, really well to improve, but we need at least another 4 to 6% on our outcomes to regard ourselves as being amongst the best providers. So we're good, but that's not where we said we wanted to be, is it? We said we wanted to be absolutely at the top end of our game. And given all the things I've just said about why apprenticeships are so important, that bit needs to follow. We've got all the skills, we've got all the knowledge, we've got all the employer partnerships, that's all in the room. It's about now saying, okay, can we push ourselves to lift that level where we become a leader in the field, and certainly one of the leading FE colleges. That should be something that we should be able to champion. So, that's 4 of the strategic objectives, and I start to struggle to remember number 5. Number 6 is system leadership. We'll come back to that another time. So number 5 is reputation. So yeah. So what better way of promoting our reputation than for employers and apprentices to be walking around saying, I had a great experience at Blackpool and Fylde College. An experience, by the way, that no one else could give me because I'm the only technical college in town and they are experts in their field and they knew exactly what to do to help me to achieve and to do well. From the employer's point of view, they knew exactly what we needed to meet the skills needs of the business and they delivered it exactly as they said they would. So in terms of reputation, I can't think of a better way of doing that. And system leadership, well, we are the only big apprenticeship provider in town. That's why we have such a wide range of programmes across a wide range of subjects, and it's part of our escalator model. That makes our challenge harder. Why? Because the easy way to grow apprenticeships, which is why private training providers do differently to colleges, is choose a small range of programmes and deliver them on a massive scale. So So do 3 or 4 and then go national and do it in large numbers. It's much easier to do. But that's not why we do it. We do it to meet the needs of Blackpool, the Fylde Coast and Lancashire. And because of that, we do a much more complicated programme, and that's more difficult to manage. But that shouldn't ever be an excuse for us. That should be the driver to really push ourselves at the top end, because you can see the impact locally. We're not absent landlords when we're delivering. We can see the businesses grow. We can see when we're around the meeting employers, we're going to events, being part of the community here. You can see the tangible outcome of what we do. So, for all of those reasons, apprenticeships are very dear to my heart. They're very much at the centre of our plan. So our challenge is, we're really, really good at this. How do we get to be the best in the field? So, on that note, I'm going to leave you with that challenge. I'm not going to answer that question for you because I can't. I think the answer is here. But to help you answer that question, it's almost a pleasure to introduce Adrian. And before I just a word of introduction. So since I've been at Blackpool and the Fylde College, I've found so many things to be amazed by and proud of, and to be impressed by. And I tell you all the time how impressed that I am by the skills and knowledge and experience I find in the college, and the things I find in the local community. So it's an amazing place with fantastic potential. But there is one thing that has impressed me more than anything else, and that is that Adrian is responsible for bringing us the Teletubbies. And that's true, Adrian.
I didn't hear what you said.
I said, you are responsible for bringing us the Teletubbies.
Oh, yeah. I'll talk about them in a minute.
Yes, great. I don't know if any of you had children at that age, but blimey, Teletubbies were a thing like nothing else. So I'm not going to say anything more, Adrian's word of introduction, because I think that stands on its own. He's a fantastic board member. He's a really interesting person, as you're going to find out as talk. He's got great experience. He's very committed to Blackpool, and I think he's going to give you a really inspiring introduction today. I hope you enjoy the day and enjoy Adrian's talk. And thank you very much for coming. Over to you.
Thank you, Alan.
You'll have to leave quietly.
You're important. You can leave now. Thank you. Thanks for that introduction, and thank you for inviting me. It's really good to be here. I'm a big supporter of apprenticeships. I sit on the BBC's apprenticeship steering group, and we put a lot of effort into that. I live here in Blackpool, as Alan said. I've been here for 4 years now. I'm waiting. My birthday is in a couple of weeks. 1 year I want to go to the beach on my birthday. I've not been able to go for 4 years. I don't know what's going on with the weather. I'm a big supporter of the college and the work you do here in our community. I only started to enjoy learning when I went to my local FE college. I'm from the south, if you've met. FE unlocked my route to HE, and it unlocked the route to my career, and I remain grateful for that. This is an unusual group for me. I usually speak to groups of journalists who are a fascinating lot. They're very curious, they're very sceptical and cynical, and they are deeply suspicious of management. So we play this game where I speak, and then they interrogate what I've said. Then the really arsey ones try to ask questions that they hope I can't answer. Luckily, I'm not feeling that vibe, but if you head in that direction, I'm well prepared. Having said that, I want to be the first to admit I'm not an expert in your field. You're the experts. So while I hope that some of what I say resonates with you, please feel free to take it all with as much salt as you see fit. I'll see the slide. I've got some slides, as always. I go that way. So I'm going to talk today about, I'm sorry, Kate and Collins, if I'm sending mixed messages, because I know data is very important. Data will get you to good, but creativity gets you to great. Before we start, how many of you here would consider yourselves creative? Let's do a quick show of hands. That's actually pretty good. Not bad. We'll come back to that later. First of all, I want to congratulate you on your good Ofsted. Or as Kate reminded me this morning, yes, it was Kate, wasn't it? You're very, very good Ofsted. It is a great achievement, and it's really impressive. I was in the sports hall, if you were there, when Alan spoke to staff after the inspectors left, and I saw the impact it had on the college. there was joy, laughter, relief, there were some tears. And I could see what it meant to people. It was a really moving moment, and I couldn't have been more pleased for you all, or more proud of you all. You're already thinking about how to get to great, as Linda reminded me. It's going to be called exemplary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very, very outstanding or something. Well, I'll refer to it as exemplary, but you know what I mean. And I've no doubt you'll get there. I know how hard you will work, how committed you are, and how determined. And I know you have exceptional leadership, making sure you continue to develop and improve. But getting to exemplary will be much harder than getting to good. The pathway to good was hard work, I know. It was well planned, structured, sequential, logical, pragmatic, and crucially, data-led. Here I get to the next messages. Getting to exemplary will require all of that and more. It means building on that good process, so you can turbocharge best practice, consistency, and further improve outcomes. Now that's a giant leap, and a transformational one. I know transformation is one of those words that's thrown around a lot, but I'll use it. And today I'm going to talk about one particular ingredient that I think you'll need to help you make that transformation, and that's creativity. And I use the word ingredient purposely. I don't believe it's a science, or that there's a mathematical formula, or a chemical equation, or an algorithm that gets transformation. It's like a recipe. All I know is that in order for transformation to take place, there are a number of ingredients that have to be present. And one of them is creativity. And it's one that threads throughout my career. So as Alan referred to, I started my career in children's BBC, what is now CBBC. I worked on a range of programmes. You can see some of here, it's probably before most of you were born. But some of them are still going, and you might recognise some of them. My favourite is Roy and Cheryl. She's brilliant. He was brilliant. Roy never understood that the camera to speak to was the one with the red light on in front of him. 20 years he worked on that programme. Never quite got that out. But the most well-known is, of course, Teletubbies, where I was exec producer on the latest series. And they're a fascinating creative case study, and there's a lot we can learn from Tinky Winky, Dipsy La La and Poe. And yes, I still treat them as individuals, and I'll come back to them later. My children's days are now behind me, and I'm in management based at Media City in Salford, where I work in adult programming, when I'm responsible for business, operations and change across England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. Usually England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, temporary, I'm just filling in for a colleague. At the heart of it, my role is about making sure the BBC is fit for the future and providing the context for my editorial colleagues to do their best work, to challenge them with new ideas and new ways of working on TV, on radio and online, and to set the stage for their creativity to flourish in this fast-changing, crazy world. Fundamentally, my role is about driving transformation. Like most sectors, and I'm sure you know this, as what we would call consumers, the media is undergoing radical, almost existential change. We're facing the challenge of new technologies, new services, new audience behaviours, importantly. It's the challenge of Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, TikTok, social media, YouTube, Spotify. The challenge of creative competition, of technological innovation, global consolidation and economic turmoil. And that turmoil is significant. The annual BBC budget is around £4 billion a year. That's great. We're lucky to have that. And it's made up of the licence fee and revenues from our commercial arm BBC Studios. It sounds a lot, but we have to compete globally because that global market comes into us. And just here are some numbers that give some perspective to that. Disney, annual income, $170 billion. Netflix, $211 billion. Meta, as the company used to call Facebook, $985 billion. Amazon, $1.6 trillion, and Apple, $3 trillion. And we have other challenges. The challenge of influencers over experts. The challenge of the haves and the have-nots in the digital sphere. The challenge of fake news, misinformation and disinformation. And at no point in my career have we ever faced such significant change, either in scale or in pace. A think it's probably the same in education. I'm sure there's different challenges, but these changes are significant. And for us, it's clear that no one is changing faster than the people our businesses are committed to. For me, it's viewers, listeners, and users. For you, it's learners. I thought about including teachers in that, and I probably should, because I think teachers probably are changing as well. I didn't include them, but we could. We have to understand those people in great detail in order to reach them and then engage them meaningfully. And in order to do that, we need good, reliable data. Data is critical in navigating that change. And I couldn't do my job without my data colleagues. In your journey to good, I've no doubt that data played a huge role. Good data keeps us honest. It challenges our assumptions, keeps old people like me in touch with things, and it helps us monitor and evaluate outcomes and impact. Without data, it's unlikely that you ever would have got to good, or very, very good. But, there's a but here, and this is why I apologise to Colleen and Kate. I think data only takes us so far, because primarily it looks backwards. Yeah, you can use it to predict and project and plan, but fundamentally it ties us to the tried and tested, to the what we know. Data is safe. And in my view, transformation doesn't always come from safe. It doesn't come through data alone, through numbers, percentages, baselines, scorecards, dashboard. I don't know about you, we have so many of them, sometimes I don't know. I don't even know what they're telling us. It comes through a less tidy and sometimes more dangerous route, through imagination, instinct, experience, through leaps of faith and risk-taking. Excuse me, I'll blow my nose. So the teachers allowed to do that. Transformation comes through creativity. Now, we've seen creativity eroded from the curriculum for a number of years now, regarded with suspicion outside the traditional creative subjects, as a soft skill at best, or belittled as an indulgent, frivolous distraction from the important stuff that will help you get a proper job. And in the task and delivery-focused workplace, and I'd include mine in this, we may acknowledge the value of creativity, but we leave so little time for it and completely misunderstand it. How many of you have been to brainstorms? Well, they call them ideation. You can't say brainstorms now in case somebody hasn't got a brain. I don't quite know why. I don't know why. There's a reason we can't say brainstorm. You have to say ideation sessions. When someone spends ages lecturing you about something, then they hand you a small pile of post-its and a felt pen and give you 10 minutes in a breakout group to come up with your best ideas. That drives me bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. And you end up with this, most of which usually gets big. Yet, in reality, we need our creativity more than ever to help make sense of this changing world and our place in it. This generation coming up, Generation Alpha as they're called, will probably face more change than any other in human history. For you and your students, change is already constant. It's rapid, it's at scale, and it's largely driven by technology. And of course, the latest big thing, AI. It's already having an impact. Just looking around the room, making lots of assumptions. For people in your age range, about 30% of you have already embraced AI in some shape or form. In your students' age range, it's more like 70%, and that's rising rapidly. And AI is growing, and it's growing very quickly. Amazon is planning to spend $100 billion on AI hardware this year. That's just Amazon. It's predicted that by 2030, AI will become mainstream, employed everywhere in all situations and all aspects of our daily lives. And Elon Musk, I'm not sure whether I should quote him because he's gone a bit petty, but he said that eventually, AI means that eventually none of us will have to work. Now, I take that, I'm old, I've been around, I've heard that for many, many years, it's never come true, so don't get too excited. But AI is turning my world upside down. You can now use AI to create a David Attenborough-style documentary without travelling anywhere in the world, or actually without even using David. David's latest film, Oceans, runs for 1 hour, 35 minutes, and had a budget of $5 million. We tried this in a pilot, and we can now make a very similar film using AI at a fraction of that price, probably not even for $100,000. It takes time, but you can do it. And most of the audience probably wouldn't notice. Now that's good news for some, of course, not so good for other. Not so in my world, and I'm sure you've got a number in yours. We work in demanding and competitive businesses, and we have to compete for attention, but build it and they won't come. So we need to excel. Good won't be good enough. Very, very, very good won't be good enough. We need to be great. We need to get to exemplary. We need to get there quickly. It's one thing I've learned recently, that pace is important. It isn't just if you look at the performance of companies, it isn't just the big companies outperforming the small ones anymore. It's fast companies beating the slow ones. So in order to be exemplary, you'll need all the knowledge, tools and expertise available to you. You'll need the best ideas, the best leadership, the best pedagogy, the best professional education and training. You'll need to boost your resilience, your emotional intelligence, critical thinking, and of course, digital literacy. As I said, you'll need your creativity. So let's define what you mean by creativity. When we think of it, we usually think of jobs and people in the creative industry: media, theatre, arts, producers, directors, writers, artists, dancers, designers, lovies, you know, hugs, flowers and kisses all round. Nothing wrong with that, although we tend not to encourage the kissing these days. If you search the internet for images of creative people, you get something like this. Don't you just want to shoot them? But I take a much broader view of what creativity is. It isn't restricted to the creative industries or to those jobs. You don't need blue hair to be creative, and there's nothing wrong. No offence to anybody with blue hair. It's gorgeous. But it's much more than that, and it's more relevant than that. To my mind, if you use your brain at work, you need to be creative. There are lots of definitions of creativity, but here's my favourite. Creativity is the ability to generate new and original ideas and solutions or ways of thinking. Creativity uses the imagination and ingenuity to approach situations or problems in innovative ways. And this is my favourite bit, often drawing connections between seemingly unrelated concepts. I like this definition. It's simple, it's clear, and it works for me. I think it probably works for you. In fact, I pretty much know it does. I should also add that this definition was generated by AI. I expect you will all know about this book. If you haven't been sent it, or haven't referred to it, I'm sure it'll be referred to soon. The Jim Collins book, Good to Great. I won't summarise it here. There are some great summaries on YouTube, just take a look. But at the heart of his thesis about how companies get from good performance to great performance are three disciplines: disciplined people, disciplined thought, and disciplined action. And I know from my work with your leadership team that this is in this, I doubt it's based on a book, but I know this is embedded in the way you work. There's a fourth discipline which he adds, which I haven't put on a slide actually, which is creative discipline as a necessary ingredient in performance improvement. Not as some wacky, off-the-wall magical gift or talent, but a disciplined process as part of a plan to get companies and organisations from good to great. Many leadership and management gurus don't get that at all. They don't understand it. But the BBC senior team, we were all put through some new psychometric tests as part of our leadership development. I won't tell you what company it comes from. But we were all categorised into four categories. You could be someone who delivers, somebody who has ideas, somebody who's a people person, and somebody who's a process person. There are different ways. That's essentially what they were. Here's the driver. This is the deliverer. If you're a deliverer, this is how they represent what if your world looks as a deliverer, very sequential, logical, all nice tiny boxes. And then they have their category for an ideas person was pioneer, and they went to that. It's all squiggly, higgly, piggly, and a bit random. And I was really cross about this because that fundamentally misunderstands what creativity is and how it works. And funny enough, I'm a combination of the two. I came out quite heavily on the pioneer side with my say. It's like being Sagittarius with Cancer rising or something. I was pioneer with driver rising. But creativity isn't random with ideas popping up all over the place. It's actually quite linear. And it's a discipline, it's a structured process, and to me it's a frame of mind. As I said, it isn't mathematical or scientific, and the outcomes aren't always predictable or useful. You have to be prepared to throw ideas away. Not all ideas are good ideas. Some of mine are absolutely crap. And I've learned to bin them fairly well. Now, Teletubbies wasn't my idea, and luckily it didn't go in the bin. Let's come back to TV Weekly to Alarm Code. Many people think that I decided to keep that bottom of the screen just to drive you mad. Many people think that Teletubbies was bonkers, but it wasn't. Its original creators, Anne Wood and Andrew Davenport, knew exactly what they were doing. They started from data. They understood early childhood development. One had a specialism in speech therapy, and they both had long careers in the media, so they knew what engaged very young children on television and what didn't. They had lots of data and lots of insight from that data. But that was only one ingredient. They then started to develop a series to play with concepts and ideas. There are 3 steps that struck me as critical to the success of Teletubbies. They needed to work out what to include or exclude from the program. This is the research data. Anne had a shop in Stratford. She did Rosie and Jim and what was the one with the French character? 3 Tiny Tots. Tots TV. I'm getting older. And in that shop, students from the local college, early childhood development students, went and they observed children watching television. They observed what children reacted well to, what they were ambivalent about, and what they really hated. And got rid of those last 2 columns. All Teletubbies only includes things that they know that children respond to. It's really simple, but that's why Teletubbies is so successful. Secondly, what would the Teletubbies look like? Anne had a thought that the NASA astronauts, and if you're my age, you're a child of the space age and the moonwalk, she thought that the NASA astronauts on the moon looked a bit like, their spacesuits looked a bit like romper suits. And so they came up with a design that married the 2. That's how they got that look. You can sort of see that connection. Then they had a problem to solve. Teletubbies had these TV screens. In preschool programs, you always have a film. You bring up somebody makes something, or there's a child doing something as a hobby, you see it. And they wanted to have they didn't want to be in a building to have to show that. So we'll put them on the tummies and wherever they are. Then they thought, well, how are the Teletubbies going to receive the picture? This is way before digital, as you can tell, because it would have been easy with Wi-Fi. In those days, they didn't have Wi-Fi. And so they gave them aerials, which is why you've got those funny head pieces. So that's finding solutions. So we've seen there, data, making unexpected connections and finding solutions. Remember this slide? It's exactly what Anne and Andrew did. And Teletubbies went on to be a huge success, watched by over 1 billion children all around the world. And Anne now has a personal net worth of around £130 million. None of it went to me, by the way, although she did buy me dinner once. Let's get back to the real world. I know that Linda and your leadership team have already started your journey to exemplary. And in your new quality management cycle, you'll focus on what you've seen, your learning walks, what you've been told in your surveys and feedback, and what the data says, what you see on the dashboards, and that's a great start. The next question are, what insights do you get from that? And what is the impact? You'll be having lots of conversations about that. And I'm hoping that you'll bring your creativity to those conversations as well. And how do you do that? And first of all, there are a few things. It's about getting into the right frame of mind. I said earlier that the creativity is a process, but it's a frame of mind. You have to switch from the left brain to the right brain, from the logical side to the more creative. And that isn't always easy. I often struggle when I need my right brain, my creative side, but I'm in a left brain kind of mood. I'm in the right mood to be creative, I can't just flick a switch. So here's how you get there. Or here's one way to get there. This is a joke. You probably know this, the duck joke. Duck goes into a bar, says to the barman, have you got any grapes? The barman says, no, this is a pub. Have you got any grapes? Go away. Next day, the duck says, thank you, so goes away. Comes back the next day, hello, got any grapes? The barman goes, oh, I told you yesterday I've got some grapes. Go away, this is a pub, we don't sell grapes. Don't come back. Third day, the duck comes in, got any grapes? The barman says, look, I've told you, go away, don't ever come back. If you do come back, I'm going to nail your beak to the bar. Yeah. Duck says, thank you very much. Goes away. Comes back the next day, got any grapes? Oh no, I've got the joke wrong. My dad always does that. Fourth day, the duck comes in. That was better. says to the barman, have you got any nails? The barman says, no. Says, right then, I'll have some grapes. I'm sorry, screw that up. This is why I don't do stand-up. But humour is a great way of switching gears. It really does. Psychologists will tell you it gets you from that side of the brain to that side of the brain. You can begin to play, you can think differently. I've seen Simon Hughes, your principal, do this. He's really expert at it. He uses humour really subtly when he wants to change the mood, reframe the conversation, get people differently. It's very good. Another person is John Cleese, Monty Python and Fawlty Towers fame. He's got a great book called Creativity. It's a really short book. There's an audio book that goes with it. It takes about an hour to listen to. I highly recommend it. He talks about the importance of play in business and at work, and the importance of giving the brain permission to relax, to step out of what he calls the conscious business mode and into, or certainly closer to, the play mode. It's very clear that you need both. You need one mode to imagine, wonder, think of ideas, and then back into the other to implement those ideas. You can't get transformation without one without the other. Another is time, and that creativity takes time. 10 minutes and a set of post-it notes won't cut it. You have to build in time for creative thinking as you plan. Now, John thinks that it takes about an hour and a half. I'm not sure you need that long, but it's somewhere between 10 minutes and an hour and a half. You can work out what works for you. And you may need a different space to do that best thinking. I rarely do good thinking in the office, but there's always a distraction. Someone I should speak to, an email I should answer, a paper I should write, or more likely some pens I should take up. I usually have ideas when I'm relaxed, when I switch off, on a walk, at the pub, chatting with friends or colleagues, daydreaming. Creativity takes work and it takes time, but it's a good investment. I'm going to wrap up now because I know I've been talking about it for a long time. I asked at the beginning whether any of you thought yourselves as creative. Not like that. So let's get back. Let's get back to that before I finish. Ignore these too many stereotypes. There's a much better way of determining whether you're creative or not. I'm going to show some characteristics. So as I go through this, think about whether they relate to you. Creative people often exhibit these characteristics. They're often open-minded, disciplined, independent, willing to take risks, adaptable. They don't mind change. They quite like changing situations. They always say, every threat is an opportunity. They're playful. They like to play. They're curious and they love learning. They can also be creatures of opposites. I don't know about you. This slide really resonates with me. I think of myself as a creature of opposite. Energetic and focused. Smart in some things, ridiculously naive in others. Playful and disciplined. Realistic and imaginative at the same time, extroverted and introverted. Sometimes I love being with people, other times I can't stand the sight of them. Proud and modest at the same time, passionate and objective. I'd add one more, and I think this is a characteristic that I've seen in creative people throughout my career. Excuse me. It's a combination of extreme self-confidence and extreme self-doubt. Two sides of them that are at war all the time. And when they screw up, it's because one of those has succeeded over the other. Sorry, excuse me. So, with those characteristics, how many of you now would probably think of yourselves as a creative person? That's a little bit more. That's good news. As I said at the beginning, I hope that some of that resonates with you, and I hope you will be able to employ your creativity as you begin your journey to exemplary. And as I said at the very beginning, I've no doubt we'll get there. Thank you very much. I'm happy to if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Does it resonate with anybody thought, oh, interesting, not interesting, useful for you in the work that you do? Too shy to answer. You're not like journalists after all.
They're probably just not warmed up properly.
Yeah,
So
right, yeah.
I think it's brilliant to start thinking about the creative stuff. I think we know from this year that we've got our ducks in the right row. We just need to keep going while we continue to improve on the stuff, the teaching and learning stuff. start to think differently. So that's a brilliant start for our day. Thank you very, very much. Thanks.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. So, thank you. So now we're going to move into our first session of the day. I'll just click Adrian signs. I'll pass that over to Caroline.
You said 10 desks. How many
Linda Dean. So Linda would have loved to have been with us today. And she asked me to share with you that the reason she's not here is her daughter just completed her masters, and as part of a treat off her mum, was given the opportunity to pick something. So Linda's daughter picked a concert in Hyde Park tomorrow. So that's where Linda is. She's on her way to London with her daughter to celebrate her achieving a masters, and she just asked me to pass on that message to you today and to say have a brilliant day. And she will definitely be here next year. Right, without further ado, I will hand over to Caroline.
There you go. Thank you. So this was the title of my session that I was given, and I was thinking about what can we do in 40 minutes, which isn't a long time, people know I like to talk, so I'm going to keep time. Regarding apprentices' personal and professional growth. Now, before I get into anything, and all will be revealed why I'm asking you to do this, you will have, hopefully, some post-it notes either on your table in a little pack or on the table in front or behind you. What I want you to do before we start, as a table, I'm going to give you 5 minutes, is tell me what the purpose of progress review meetings are. You can write me lots of different examples. Each example needs to go on a separate post-it note. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to shove them all post-it notes on your table. What's the purpose of progress review meetings? Alan's talk, where there's quite a lot of focus, particularly for DNFC for next year, on high performance. So that's high performance in terms of us as an organisation, and of course, based on Alan's email yesterday, that's both locally and regionally that we are going to be working with a broader community to try and improve high performance for all of those employers and stakeholders and students and apprentices that we serve. So I want to think about progress review meetings in the context of high performance and how we can use progress review meetings to ignite and sustain high performance in our apprentices. So you tend to find, so in terms of high performance, there's not just progress review meetings, is there? There's all sorts of stuff that we do with apprentices to make sure that they perform well. So we've got, I know we've talked about on this table here, so careers advice and guidance. We talk to our apprentices a lot about progression to that next step in terms of that next level occupation. We help our apprentices understand how to get there. We've obviously got what Colleen mentioned, which is about pedagogy, that stretch and challenge within our lessons. We've got, again, this table's talked about it, highly effective coordination with our employers of on and off the job training. We measure starting points, so we not only know how to bridge gaps, but also we can take them forward and stretch and challenge them in a different way. So there's loads of different ways that we ignite high performance with our apprentices. But if we think about high performance in the context of progress review meetings, I'm going to link back to what Adrian talked about. He kind of talked about a little bit about neuroscience. So if you think about neuroscience, they tend to think about having a conversation with another human being in 3 different ways. So they talk about conversations being transactional, they talk about them being positional, and they talk about them being transformational. And you tend to find most conversations will fall into one of those 3 spheres. I'm going to take the first one and the last one for this. So if you think about transactional conversations that we have with our apprentices, if you were going to define it, some of these words, I hope you can all see them, down the left-hand side, would be aligned to having a transactional conversation with an apprentice. So you tend to find that it's focused on outcomes, you tend to find it's task orientated, you're looking at criteria within the qualification, or you're looking at the KSBs and you're thinking about whether they've got any gaps. You're looking at whether they've met their deadlines, when they're going into Gateway, where they're up to with the functional skills. It's all quite task and outcome driven. You also find with transactional that it's very routine. So you tend to have a pro forma in a transactional conversation. You tend to follow the same structure, which is great because it means that we have consistency. But that's how we enable a transactional conversation to take place. Then you've got a transformational conversation, which is very different. You may well still cover the same stuff within that progress review meeting, but its focus will be very different. So its focus will be on, it's less of a one-sided conversation, it's more of a two, because if you think back to transactional, I can't see it at the bottom there, but it tends to be one-sided. I have a list of things I need to get through with you, and I will go through with them, and you will respond to me with the things that I want to talk to you about. Okay? When you get to transformational conversations, it's much more two-way. What do you want to talk about? Have you got anything you want to talk to me about before we get into the review meeting? That kind of stuff. But you also tend to find that transformational conversations are developmental and holistic. So it's not just focusing on the content of the prescribed structure of the progress review meeting, but actually that you are delving into other stuff that might be much more holistic, built around that apprentice and that apprentice's journey. So you'll explore things like challenges, things like what did the experience that you had in X within your setting tell you about you as an apprentice or as an employee within that setting. That's the main difference between a transactional conversation and a transformational one. Transactional is task orientated, outcome orientated, quite mechanical, not that that's a bad thing. Transformational conversations are much more deliberative and a two-way process in terms of establishing where that apprentice is at. So, my question to you is, in your post-it notes, if you imagine on your table you've got a Venn diagram, would the post-it note sit in the transactional part of a progress review meeting? Would it sit in the transformational part of the progress review meeting? Or would it be a bit of both? So if I give you 5 minutes to then look at your post-it notes on your table, would you say the transactional or transformational?
Attended any of it?
Every single one? Yeah, no, I'm never like 5 minutes and then done, so I can I mean, they can be very thorough with it, so
It's still a conversation
very much so.
Not easy.
Like I said, it's I'm going
might have to eat that to give us more space on the table.
They didn't have restriction of time. It does not feel like
There's lots and lots of interesting conversations going on. Lots of you coming up actually with quite similar things. I'm just going to pick on a couple of tables, if that's all right, to feed back your thoughts. So we had a conversation, didn't we, at the end about, in fact, I'll let you do it. I won't do it as much justice as you, Sarah. So what did you think when you were trying to categorise the component parts of the progress review meeting into different styles.
Yeah, so we had a conversation about how it all depends on how you frame the questions and how you frame that progress review meeting. Because obviously you can ask someone about the targets in a very strict way of, okay, what were your targets last time, how's your progress? Or you could pull it from them and draw it from them by just saying, okay, tell me about this scenario or something like that. So it just depends on how you frame any of these questions as to where it actually goes.
And what we said is, as practitioners, no matter what we're teaching, when we're having one-to-ones with students, young people, apprentices, we're often taught and trained on the pragmatics or the transactional part of doing that one-to-one, aren't we? So you must make sure you do this and measure the targets, and you've got to make sure the employer's there and look at the progress versus where the, attainment versus progress. We're told to kind of look at all those different things, but what we were saying is, how do we ever really analyse ourselves as practitioners in terms of the quality of the questions that we ask that enables both transactional and transformational conversations to take place? We do tend to get training on the transactional part because that tends to be routine, standardised. We want to make sure it's consistent. We want to make sure every apprentice has the opportunity to have the progress measured, targets set, employer being there, etc. It does become not a checklist. A checklist is fine, because what we also want is to have consistency. We want every apprentice to have, at every review meeting, these 7 or 8 things discussed. But it's about how we frame the question that enables us to move from what could be more transformational but ends up being transactional, because we're simply following the process in one file in terms of how the progress review meeting's laid out. And Aaron, your table, give me some feedback on what you were saying, because that was quite interesting, I thought.
I think exactly what you've just said, that there's transformational conversations and actions on a day-to-day basis. When you get to the meeting, there tends to be a focus on the transactional, and it loses that flexibility and that real opportunity for the apprentice to have the input and to demonstrate their own feelings, their own development moving forward, particularly, as we said, where there's drop-down boxes and you just put alluded to it there, that you fit into A, B or C, and you lose that transformation.
Great, okay.
The other thing on our table was, since we're talking about creativity today,
Yeah.
can we be a bit creative about the one-file template?
Absolutely, Linda. We've got a new one coming. We talked about it last week in our CM's meeting, and when Caroline's done her bit, I'm going to talk to you about that. It'd be interesting to hear a totally different conversation.
Go for it. Love it.
Yeah, so we were looking, so we talk about celebrating achievements when we're reviewing the goals and setting new goals, and also when we're looking at the job progress, we're asking the students what is the key learning and what is the greatest impact that's had, and also when we're looking to obtain feedback on knowledge, skills and behaviours, we're then looking at how that's been transferred to the role. So we're sort of encouraging the apprentice, they're doing this specific goal, the professional and personal goal. We're asking the questions around the greatest impact, around the transference to the role, and looking at the goals in terms of achievements.
So you're quite growth orientated then, and if you think about mindsets, we'll all know about fixed and growth mindset. That sounds to me like a growth mindset model that you have.
It might also, we would say, depend on the level of the apprentice, because some will need more of that sort of instructional approach, whereas because we're working with managers from industry, they want something, they want the opportunity to sort of speak in front of their employer about what they've achieved, whereas maybe apprentices on lower levels haven't yet developed that level themselves in terms of their knowledge, skills and behaviour, so they can't, maybe they're not as eloquent in, being able to reflect on what's been achieved, because they're not at, we're level 4, level 5, level 6.
So that's interesting. So what you then, so I take your point. I suppose then if we're dealing with a level 2 or 3 apprentice that currently is not in the growth mindset model,
or they can't reflect as much.
Exactly. It goes back to the design of the apprenticeship programme then, as to how are we going to develop those skills and attributes in those potentially young people, if they're on level 2, level 3, I don't know. But how do we then weave into the way we've designed our programme, to the sequencing of learning, to the additional skills that we build in that might not be the KSBs from the standard, how do we weave that in so that over time you're
going to have to prompt them more, aren't you? Because they might not recognise their achievements like a level 6 manager might. So you're going to have to prompt them more because it might be yes or no responses from someone.
So that over time
lower level.
you're right, so you go from the prompting to over time they lead you. And it's how do you use progress review meetings over time to enable that transformation to happen, isn't it? Out of interest, before I do our final thing, how many people had more post-it notes in the transactional side than the transformational, just out of interest? Who had it about 50-50? Yeah, okay. Because actually, that should be and, not or in the middle, shouldn't it? It should be both, shouldn't it? And I know it always will be because we are a high-performing organisation. And there are times when it should be this because we need to get stuff done and the apprentice needs to know where they're at and we need clarity. But it should also be this so that the problem with transactional, and it is great, is that they are relying on you all the time to tell them what to do next. What you want to get to is, I already know what I need to do next because you developed that in me to be able to understand where I'm at and what I need to focus on moving forwards.
I think it's not the other one, it's on your transaction, it's all closed questions and sticks, it's all yes and no's, whereas obviously in transformation it's very much you're open and it's just sometimes structuring and thinking a little bit more, because sometimes it's easy to think asking closed questions then you're not building that before, are you?
I think it is good because one file has changed, so they have to complete it before the review. That's
And that helps.
a really big impact.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's very short.
Yeah.
You know, because they hadn't been given the time. Like when we talk about creativity, they haven't been given the time because they've just discussed it during the meetings. Whereas now they've got to, you know, they've got to allocate that time. And
Talked about reflection. Yeah.
Caroline, would you say that then a hybrid of both of these is taking ownership of their diploma?
Absolutely. So what we've agreed, I think, is that we need to take a hybrid approach to the way that we construct our progress review meetings and the way that we lead them, because we are the leaders of that progress review meeting. And I think we've established what we need to do, which is the merger of those two things. But the question now is how. Because we talked, didn't we? We get loads of training on the what. You need to do this, this and this. But how do you do it? How do you phrase the question so that it can become transformational as opposed to closed, yes, no, transactional? So the final thing I want to do, I think I'm on time, excellent, is I want us to spend, if we're off 20, but if we do 15 minutes, on your tables you've got some research, all on different things. Some of it's around employees, so it's not necessarily specifically focused on apps, but there should be some messages in there about how to make conversations transformational. The ask is that you review it. If you haven't got copies, you might need to share. I'm really sorry.
They all the same.
Identify 2 techniques from that piece of research that you could use to have principles for progress review meetings.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say that.
What we need to give in the answers.
Thank you.
You will need to probably share with you guys coaching. I'm really sorry, did I ask you to share 1 between 2? The research, is that alright? Do you mind? Thank you. I'll leave it there. Thank you. Thank you. Can I borrow that one? Do you mind? Thank you. If you can share that with me.
Pay and rations.
Title of your article and give me one of the techniques that you believe. Oh my goodness. One of the techniques that will enable you to transform a progress review meeting into a high performance conversation. So what's the title of your article? What's the technique? If Colleen can write those techniques down, we'll collate them all and then send them back out to you so that we've got some form of framework, or at least the starting of a framework moving forward into next year. So if I start with Caroline's table, what was your article and 1 technique? Read the title. 10 top tips for monitoring an apprentice's progress, okay. And what would your technique be? So using endpoint assessment to what?
Requirements and use them to introduce progress.
I see. So essentially, developing mock type assessments, is that what you mean? So that constantly they're making progress over time towards that endpoint? Yeah? Okay. Yeah. And what would the transformational conversation that you would have with the apprentice based on their mock assessments, what would that look like? Transferable skills. Got it. Cool, thank you. Linda, your table, what was your title of your article? Mel?
They're taking all the paperwork, Caroline. I've got 14 copies of it and you still don't understand.
Looks like I've been nominated.
Excellent.
So we've got empowerment and leadership development for magic of one-to-ones.
What would your technique be?
Kind of letting them lead in a way, so for obviously involving the apprentice and the employer and the trainer, but linking it in with kind of their agenda, what they're doing in the workplace, what tasks are they doing, to then link it into the learning and development of the apprenticeship as well.
So in that sense then, would you do that at the start of the progress review meeting before you tap into the one file framework structure? So that then you can use what they said at the beginning to almost preempt the questions?
Yeah, but also have an idea before you even go to the meeting, so send out the agenda to the apprentice and the employers so they've got an idea of.
And they can bring with them their thoughts?
Yes.
Okay.
Just sorry, I couldn't actually speak because it's expected.
Oh, no.
It's about planning, which they all know, but it's also, I think, with ours is high performance because we record them. So it's a natural flowing conversation rather than looking at a screen and saying, so question 1, what are you doing, how are you feeling? Question 2, your progress is on target. It's very much a free flowing conversation and it's more about the employer and apprentice leading because they've been trained and supported into that role.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Fab. Round the table. What was your article?
Building bridges for success. So one of the things we talked about was sort of managing expectations from the start. So what is the aim? What is the overarching thing that the progress review is going to do? So we want to set that expectation that yes, this is what it's going to track. It's going to do this, do that. But where we want to be in 3, 4 progress review times, that you're leading it and you're telling us what we're doing. So that was more of a direct conversation that we thought.
Totally agree. Absolutely right, yeah. And it's how we train the apprentice to do that over time, isn't it? Awesome. Pam, your table? Dion? What was the title and what's your technique?
How coaching students is more effective than instructing. And the main coaching technique was active listening. So they need to be able to actively listen to your apprentices to be able to understand their goals, needs and motivations.
Fab. And how do you show that, how do you do active listening? How does the apprentice know?
Most of that is framed in the targets that you're setting them within the progress review anyway.
Yeah.
And some of them are led by employers, some are led by the apprentice and some are led by the trainer.
Yeah. So it's all autonomous and empowering, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fab, great. Back table, what was your technique and your title?
Yeah, so we looked at what is one-to-one coaching. It really does put the apprentice at the heart of the conversation by asking inquisitive, open, transformational questions, such as where are you going, what is going well, how can I help? So it really does create that dialogue, open dialogue between the apprentice and the work coach.
Do you know what, right? I went to the doctors the other week about my sciatica, don't ask. Anyway, and the question he asked towards the end was, what do you want the next steps to be? And I thought, normally you would just say, right, I'm going to do this, this and this. But he didn't, and so I was able to say, actually, I really feel like I need an MRI scan because I don't understand what's going on, blah, blah, blah. But so that became a transformational conversation because I felt empowered to have some ownership over the next direction in terms of my care. So yes, exactly.
And that ownership there is actually golden. It's about me. It's about.
I owned that decision then.
Yeah.
So I'm more likely to go to my MRI appointment because I made the decision to do it. Just as your apprentices, if they own the decisions, if they own the targets, they're more likely to do it because they've set them.
Correct.
Exactly.
Most of them do say, well, I don't know, you should be telling me.
Exactly, and that goes back to training.
Yeah, it's over time.
You to tell me.
Oh no, I was like, great. Automotive.
So we've got Article 4, strategies for conducting a great one-to-one coaching session. We were looking at coaching, it's a collaboration involving personalised attention. So there's different coaching styles for different people, so we'd have to adapt that and setting the clear goals and the objectives. But out of all of those that we could choose, we virtually had all of them ticked. So the one that we picked was creating a positive learning environment, but we combined another one into it because it's also having the correct attitude. Now that's not necessarily the learner having the correct attitude, but also the person doing the review having that correct attitude. And in there, if you've got everything set out, you should be able to get a really good one-to-one session going.
Excellent. Fab. Thank you. Back table, what's the technique and the title of your article?
Right, so we've got Article 8, a growth mindset, which I think we've got 2 tables for this one.
Oh, great, okay.
On,
have you worked together or have you got 2 separate ones?
No, we've done it separately, sorry, I'm really short of
No,
time,
you're
I'll
right.
be quick. So we were looking at recognising successes, however small they are, chunking goals, making them individualised, but also have the employer involved in that as well, so that the employer is aware of the progress that's being made. And celebrating success is always, something that I think they want to concentrate on.
Yeah, and actually you forget that employers can also contribute to the transformational aspect of high performance, can't they? They're an absolutely vital component of the three-way dialogue. So, great, thank you. Did you get something similar or a different one?
So we picked a different one. So we looked at the embrace of challenges. So obviously we're all sort of experts in our own field. We're the ones that are delivering it and carrying it out. We've all gone through challenges ourselves. So if we're able to embrace those challenges as the person carrying it out, model that, then we're going to be surrounding them and fostering that culture of growth and development because they can relate back to us and we can relate to them.
Love that. Yeah, that's a great one. Thank you.
So,
at your table, what was your article and what's your technique?
So obviously we had an Article 4 by Student Coaching Services, and it came through with like the goal model and like the feed forward kind of concept. So Clett was discussing about adapting the walkthrough training and kind of embedding that kind of processes throughout. So obviously setting the goals, so like embedding like set the standards, set your expectations for the kind of the meeting. Also their progress, setting those expectations as well, giving them the ownership, not allowing them to opt out of situations. So obviously they have their KSPs, it's their responsibility, and so obviously bringing that through, and obviously making sure we're providing scaffolding, so making sure the tripartite meeting involves how can we support you along the way.
Perfect.
And kind of embedding that sort of structure, but then also kind of checking back on progress, like they set the scorecards, have they increased? Checking back their learning journals, have they increased, have they sort of making sure you're actually validating all those kind of gains and kind of celebrating them in the next review.
Perfect, amazing. Ownership is coming through really strongly, isn't it, about apprentices owning their journey and their learning. Great. And finally, last but not least,
What was your
we had the same
article,
one as
Nick?
well, student coaching services, benefits of one-to-one academic coaching, and we were saying the power of personalised attention.
Personalised
It's
attention.
very much
okay.
about the learner and not the process.
Yes.
So having open-ended conversations and stuff. So instead of having closed-ended of these are your targets, do you agree to them? This is what you achieved. Well done. And move on. Have more open-ended conversations. So what do you feel like you've achieved? And what do you want to focus on and things like that. So again, goes back to that ownership side of it.
Yeah.
But they feel like they're also having an opportunity to contribute and they're part of that process and buying into it. But we also like the addressing the whole student. And we're saying a bigger aspect at the minute, particularly the 16 to 19s, is the emotional and social developments as well. So not just focusing purely on the academic side, but also having a look at their well-being and their safeguarding side and stuff as well, because there's a lot coming out around that at the moment.
Yeah.
But being comfortable enough to have those conversations.
Yeah. Super, thank you. So, I recognise I have run out of time. I guess what we're saying is, that should be an and, that there's lots of ways to make it into a hybrid approach, and actually now it's about practicing those techniques and refining that strategy in order to develop the ownership and the personalisation within those progress review meetings. So, thank you. Thanks very much. So I think that's really getting us started to think differently for today. Sets up for the rest of today. So brilliant session. Thanks very much. So after each of the 4 sessions that we've got planned, I'm going to, like 3 out of 4 of the sessions, I'm going to frame what does next year look like in this space. So Linda, this is the bit where I'm going to tell you about the progress reviews. So we've taken, I'm going to say, feedback stroke beating for me. Off an apprenticeship focus group this year, who's been challenging us to do things differently. I'm looking at Kerry because I think we're the only one that's in the room. One of the things that we were asked to look at was the personal and professional development curriculum. So we launched it last year. It was great. We did what we needed it to do, but we knew we needed to do it differently. So with feedback and tweaks, we've landed at the refresh for next year. So we've got a new set of BLE to launch, and that's on Articulate. It's really good. It's much better than any of the BLE courses that we've seen in One previously. We're converting the monthly focus newsletter into an interactive BLE course, which hopefully will engage apprentices better. It's more relevant to them within their roles. We're introducing monthly apprentice journal reflection. Well, that's already there, but there'll be more emphasis on that. And then this process will be centrally managed, which is good news for everybody, I think. But what that enables us to do is to then look at the progress reviews. So PPD, we need to be able to demonstrate it, and we did demonstrate it in inspection. We got one. We can take that out now because we've got a really robust plan for PPD. So that's coming out of the progress reviews. Progress reviews are going to be put into 3 simple sections. The first one is well-being, is everything as it needs to be, is everything changed. Then it's about progress that you've made and celebrating any successes and wins, and then it's target setting. So your progress reviews are going to look very different. The Royal We are starting to develop a draft, which again will be shared with the apprentice focus group and maybe a few other key people within our apprenticeship community to get us to the place where we've got something different for next academic year. What that means is the first time that you do your reviews from the 1st of August, you will have to pull through the targets. You can't get around that. So that is a task that everybody will have to do. So I'm going to go up front and tell you about that. But actually the review should be much more focused on impact of new knowledge, skills and behaviour, and then you start to get into those transformational conversations. So you will see the QR codes on your table. If you can just take 2 minutes, session 1 is what you are looking for, or you can scan the QR code that's on the screen. There's 2 or 3 questions that we're just asking for some feedback again that will help us shape our CPD as we move forward. Some of that time that you have planned into having those high performance transformational conversations. What else have we got on there? Standardised conversations. maybe standardise. Every apprentice, just my view, every apprentice and every employer might be slightly different. Expect them to be different, but in terms of standardise what you are saying, maybe that's what you're saying there. Apprentice, the new role. Well, that's then when somebody's thinking, actually, this job's not for me, I'm off for a new role. Hopefully not. Hopefully that's somebody saying that within their team they may feel, based on some of these conversations we've had today, that they need to put more resource into the preparation and delivery of progress review meetings, good communication, coaching techniques, updated progress review, which you've got coming for next academic year. And then what's one thing you're going to approach differently? So active listening, great to see that in there. Transformational approach to reviews, conversations with apprentices. Again, the new roles come in there. So that's brilliant. So keep engaging with the feedback for us as we go throughout today. Well, this one goes on. Click on it. Hopefully. Lucy, I don't know you. Do that one. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Mary, Aaron and Neil from the Functional Skills team for the next session. Sorry, that feedback slide takes you on. And this is where we're going to be looking at the lasting impact of maths and English.
Good morning, everyone. It does have my name on it, but I'm actually going to do very little. It's mainly Aaron and Neil today. Does everyone know Aaron and Neil? Yeah. Okay, fabulous. So I am going to translate to Neil first of all.
Oh, that's
go ahead.
Thank you, Mary.
Mine is a short bit, so it's going to be mainly Aaron today. So on your tables, I've put we've divided into going the idea of time being pressing into English and maths. So we'll find some English resources. Document 1, document 2. There's just a couple of each, so if you can just group together and share, that would be really helpful. And then there should be a question sheet with questions about the two documents. So what your task on the screen?
So the front row, you've got English resources and questions, and the back row, you've got maths. Okay. So we want you to have a go. We're not going to be marking it, but we want you to have a go. This is level 2 resources. And we want you to reflect on the questions on the board as you're doing it. Okay. We're going to give you 10 minutes to have a look and reflect how it makes you feel doing this.
You taking control now? Yeah.
Does that make you feel any better?
So it's okay to work together, and your idea is that you can have 10 minutes to deal with these. What I want you to all think about while you're doing that is how you actually feel, how you felt when the task was presented to you, how you feel in terms of emotional intelligence has been mentioned today, but what was more interesting is how the learner feels when they realise the work involved.
Oh, it's right. Yeah.
You're going to try and find the question.
You got plenty going. Oh, you got
You got maths? Yeah. I bet you're all over that, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Good strategy.
She does have enough money.
Honestly, it's a 50-50 at this point. She doesn't, she doesn't.
What's that? This is the you said it, yeah. Didn't see it. Didn't see it. Good initiative. But out of all the tables, this is the table that's really got stuck into it. You're all doing the task. It's brilliant. You're all happy with maths. Would you be as happy with English? You prefer English. Got the maths genius here.
Yeah. I should have said
I've never made a house. My husband would do that. Yeah. Well, I'd pay somebody to come and paint wood. So I've got 20 plus 4.
That's points.
I know. So, I assume I'm not all these switches. How much pay
It's multiplied. It's like that. It's multiplied. During the task, what happened? What did anything change in how you felt? Were you able to get some help from your colleagues? Were you able to proactively do the task quickly, or did it take you a bit longer? Did you understand the words? Was there something in there that you didn't understand? How does it feel knowing that I'm going to take another mark and give you some individual feedback? Can we start with that table over there? Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, it's definitely one of these emotional responses that we have. I get a bit about it in the headlights when I'm given the tasks that I've not understood.
Can I just say, that team over there at table, you're really good at looking busy. I saw you all had your calculators out. Yeah, I don't know what you're doing. Move words upside down or something, I don't know. But you look good.
Okay, I won't go through everybody's table, but has anybody got anything different that they want to add? Just say. If there's anything that struck them about how they felt, did anything change? You know, what kind of things do we need to be doing in our approach with the learners when they, you know, are facing these barriers or these kind of, you know, various stages of learning with maths?
This table had some good reflections over here. Sorry, Tony. What were you saying about the English?
Well, we were basically saying our basic strategies is to skim read, because you're just bombarded by information all the time, and to actually sit and read for content, you just don't have the time anymore. So those are our basic go-to strategies. We tried to implement it here, and then obviously it didn't work. Yeah. So we were like, oh crap, our normal day-to-day strategies of how we get through information didn't work. So we were like, we have to have techniques of keywords that we're looking for, and change our strategies and approach to be able to do this. And that we all ended up having to go back and read again and read each individual word to get the content to be able to do it. And it just came back to the key strategies that we have are not effective for what we need.
And understanding the question was
yeah,
the main
reading.
one.
And that's it, and you know, distractions and there's a lot of background noise, everybody's working, and it's so difficult to sort of, you know, process all the information that there is. I think that's really important that you've got that skim reading under your belt. You know, it's not everybody's got that to start with, so that's fantastic. Anybody else?
Yeah, big for me, and my brain is very much maths. I'm sat next to somebody who's an English teacher, so I found myself wishing I was sat at the back of the room first of all, and not engaged with it. But I would, you know, we would compare, and she'd written the mark down, and I would compare and I would feed back into that. I wouldn't say, you know, we work together and, you know, but only Caroline's done it. But that was my very much, and I would sort of focus on the 4 marks in terms of the mathematical thing of, oh, I just need 2 words here for 2 marks, and I would work at it as that as I was doing it myself.
That's great in terms of your exam planning, knowing how to approach the answers to get the best marks. But what you said about in terms of engagement is really critical, isn't it? It's nice that you know you're able to share with us that.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just acknowledge Tracy, who is still
doing my calculation, by the way.
This is just a reminder slide. So in 2019, functional skills was reformed. So how many people did key skills as part of apprenticeships and vocational qualifications? So it's moved on a lot since then, as you can tell from the questions in front of you. There's a greater focus on spelling, punctuation, grammar, phonics, problem solving, rather than just maths. You remember the numeracy qualification, multiple choice. You could pass by guessing. And it's on. We've got increased guided learning hours, etc. So nationally, unfortunately, the pass rate for level 2 English and maths is around 50%, and maths is lower. That's not the same as apprenticeships here. It's much higher because you have got a bespoke team that we'll have a look at in a minute. Okay. So the current landscape, as you all know, a few months ago, a very strange decision came out by the government where the rule around English and maths for age was slightly changed. So if you're 16 to 18, you still need to remain doing your English and maths and complete that qualification. But for 19 plus, it's now optional, and they can decide, so the apprentice and the employer can decide if it's part of that training plan. What has been lovely is most employers at this organisation have said, no, we still want them to do it. That's right, Sarah, isn't it? Absolutely. How many have we actually had that have withdrawn from it?
No, less than 20.
Less than 20. And that just shows the value that English and maths is placed on by employers and by the college. So we're just saying over here, for the computing apprenticeship team, you were saying a lot of your apprentices already have English and maths because they require it to work at that organisation. So that's the value of English and maths and why it's really important. Okay, so the funding implications for this is that we'll still get funded for that adult if they do decide to opt into English and maths. I don't like the word opt-in, I prefer that they all do it and they opt out. And what will happen, this was really interesting, I'm throwing this to Linda here,
If they do include it in their training plan and then decide to not do it anymore, we will get funded until that last date of learning, but it's how we manage the achievement side of that, and that's something we need to look at. Okay, so as part of the training plan, it needs to be clearly documented in there, and providers must record those discussions about whether they opt out. Let's call it opt out, not opt in. Okay. We're still not a huge amount of information about foundation apprenticeships, but it is talking about them doing English and maths, but not necessarily having to do the qualification at 16 to 18. And there's more information to come out about that at the moment. Again, very, very strange. I believe this is coming from training providers, I feel, rather than colleges. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that there. So a couple of years ago, well, in fact last year, the funding rate for functional skills and apprenticeships went from around £400 to £700 plus, which actually matches the ASF funding. So we're actually getting the same amount of funding now, but the same guided learning hours of 55. The level 2 maths is really low, so that is interesting as well. And then the broader context. So the reforms that I've talked about were supposed to be about increasing flexibility, and mainly for adults. I'm actually doing an apprenticeship at the moment, and it's a level 7, and there's a couple in the group that are having to redo the maths. And they're actually telling me it's been a great experience for them. So please, if you're doing that level of apprenticeship, don't assume straight away that it wouldn't be beneficial to them. They've said how useful it has been for their children's homework, not necessarily their job. So just think about the wider context of it when you're having that conversation with the apprentice. So separate to this, we've got the curriculum assessment review, which is going to be published this summer, which is reviewing English and Maths as part of study programmes and English and Maths in general. So it'll be interesting what comes out there, knowing what has come out for apprenticeships. But apparently there's not many surprises, is all I've heard. So that'll be interesting, because at the moment, GCSE English is not fit for purpose. You don't need to know about 19th century text in order to survive in this world. And it does assess general intelligence, but our students in study programmes having to study that when it's not, not in there, when it's not really their vocational curriculum. That's why we still do functional skills for a lot of students at this college on study programmes and not necessarily GCSE. Maths is a bit different, it does still test the skill. I'm going on and on. Okay, so functional skills at this college. Okay, so the college is invested in good English and Maths. You can see it everywhere, hopefully. I'm seeing a lack of badges. I love English and Maths. We need to get these out to the apprenticeship team. So you actually have a bespoke English and Maths team. If you've come from a training provider, a lot of training providers, the English and Maths is delivered by the trainer. We don't here. We have this bespoke team of 5 people. We've got Rob, Neil, Tracy, Maddie and Linda. And the achievement rates for English and Maths in this college for apprenticeships is excellent. Our first time pass rate is in the high 80s. Just remember, I've just said national rate is 50%. So you have got a very good team doing a very good job there. And the delivery model can be really bespoke to that employer and apprentice. So as you know, you can speak to Rob, and that can be set up by the employer when they decide on the training plan. Right, I'm going to hand over to Aaron.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to get busy again. So this time we're going to switch things around. So if you're on the front row of tables, now you're going to do maths, Tony. Come into your element. If you're on the back row, I want you to think about English. Now, you're not going to do any specific tasks, but the first thing is just start to think about where have you used maths or English in everyday life over the last week. So not work, everyday life, outside work, where have you used maths and English? Now you could start off this morning, I'm sure you have 5 or 6 times already today. 5 minutes to make a list on your team. I'll go to some of the tables. Where have you used maths or English, everyday life? Away you go. Okay. Good to hear the MIF team talking about the maths there. Good, good, I like it. Okay, so one thing that became evident there, we're using maths and English all the time, aren't we? Everything we do is maths and English. There's a couple of questions later just looking about how does it relate to work and future careers. But let's have a look at some of those pointless answers on how we use maths and English on a day-to-day basis. So which table should we go for first? Then let's have a think. Yeah, oh, okay, yes. Yeah, Phil, you had a really good example. Do you want to share that with us, Phil?
We've got three. We've got payday, and I started thinking about how much I didn't have, like about the 9th of this month.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah.
The golf cards. There's a lot of, you know, I'm one of those.
But I'll be honest, Phil, you showed us a scorecard and there's a miscalculation there.
Can we have pizza costs for the kids' football team?
Fantastic. Oh, wow, wow. What on earth is that?
We used to do with measuring out space that was required to put the base down for a shed or a greenhouse.
Pointless answer. Yeah, there's got golf cards over here, but pointless answer by Pythagoras measuring out. Okay, English at the back over there. That's, yeah.
Oh, what, us?
No, sorry. Yes.
Us.
Yeah.
Having to read and understand a flight health and safety card before you take off.
Exciting. And we had our ACE Awards last night, which were brilliant. And I tell the story a lot, and it gets me every time. In September, we're in a community centre. A gentleman came in, 30, and he looked at me and said, I can't read and write. I've got no idea. And I can't get a job. And he can't read the health and safety card on the flight. Can't do anything like that. And he was at our award evening last night. He got an award. But I saw him a few weeks ago. And it was amazing. Honestly, I almost broke down. He was there and he was really impressed with BUS. Bus. And wow. Powerful. Yeah. Brilliant. So the impact of maths and English on everyday life. Fantastic. Last one, table down here for maths. Catherine's table.
I think what we said that people think of maths as looking at numbers and number crunching, but understanding or applying maths is more of problem solving, which obviously do all the time.
Absolutely.
So that's what I said.
So the importance of maths isn't just about working out your scorecard or whatever. It's problem solving all the time. And apprentices, that's what they do, isn't it, in the workplace all the time. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next task. So we're going to stay with the same maths or English this time. So I'm thinking about not everyday life, sorting out your scorecard or reading but in terms of higher level maths and English, where do you use those skills in the workplace? Okay, so higher level maths in the workplace, what do you use them for? Okay, going to give you 3 minutes, so not much time, 3 minutes in your team. Reading, writing, your basic calculations. I'm going to start with this table here because I think there's a good comment there. So in terms of in the workplace, where do you use a slightly higher level of maths than you would do in everyday life?
Well, it's working out brake efficiencies in the garages. So if you're an MOT tester, you need to be able to do those calculations. You need to be able to get the vehicle weight, and then get the figures, add them all up, and then do a division and multiplication.
Good example.
Percentage. So that's higher level maths in everyday work.
Yeah, contextualised towards automotive, so thank you. Table over here for English. Acronyms. Go and explain that to me, Carl. So, have you got any examples? Still trying to work them out. Oh, right, BAU. Oh, okay. Well, I'm still getting confused with PPD, PDD, PPPD, and DDPPD. One of them delivered something in the house the other day, I don't know which one it was. Okay. And finally, computing over the far side.
Program boards.
Say again?
Program boards.
Program
boards.
Boards. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So again, your program board sorted. What English skills would you be using there?
Presenting the results.
Absolutely. So it's good, strong presentation skills, and also the listening, interpretation of data for your maths. The final question, we're pushed for time, so we're going to cut this down to 1 minute, okay? So I want you to start thinking about your promotion, yeah? So when you go to the next level within your current workplace. So what maths and English skills will you need to be able to secure that promotion? So let's think about it. We've got the maths and English on a day-to-day basis, the basics. Then we've got what you're currently operating at, and what is it you need to strive to with your maths and English. You've got 60 seconds. Pointless answer, away you go.
English and maths. Whatever you need. Maths or English, lowercase m, capital E.
Okay, so we'll go through a couple of responses. Table here, what have you got? Thank you, Michelle.
Managing staff budget, workforce planning, managing expenditure, preparing data for key meetings.
Wow. Okay. Heavy maths there, okay. Brilliant, thank you for the examples. Table here. Sarah, your table.
I'm quite happy where I am, thanks.
That's a good answer. Yeah, I like it. We move on quickly. Final table over the far side. English.
So doing APRs, writing the APR reports.
Absolutely. So report writing, okay, budget, it's all that. Okay. So a little bit of summary. And this is about having that sort of consistent message with regards to maths and English all the way through the apprentice journey. From that initial contact to completion, it's, well, why are we doing maths? What is the importance? What's the value? And to take what Mary said there, how do we survive? And how does maths and English help us survive? And focus on the red text here. Essential knowledge, skills and understanding to operate confidently. That could be everyday life, yeah. In the workplace, in your promotion, but operate confidently, effectively and independently. That's what we want the apprentice to be able to do in life, education and work. So key takeaway. And if that's the message, why we do maths and English and the importance to value and to survive, then we've got the buy-in. Okay, going to move over to Mary.
Thank you, Aaron. A few people in the room have told me, well, my apprentices don't do functional skills, but what's important about that conversation there is you still need it built into your training plan to develop their English and maths, even if they've not got that qualification. So that's why we're focused on the basic to the middle to the top, because we want them to be the best they can in work and get that promotion. So finally, we've been tasked with writing a statement which is given by Sarah's team, on Sign Up about English and maths and why it's important to study it, especially for those 19 plus that might decide to opt out. So what I want you to do in your table, okay, is think about how we can sell it to those apprentices. Just write a few notes down, and I'm going to ask that is emailed to me or sent on Teams, one person per table, just a few notes. We're not going to have 7 minutes because we don't have 7 minutes. We're going to have 3 minutes to have a think about that. You can open Teams now and send me it straight away. Just a few bullet points about how you'd sell that to that apprentice on Sign Up and the employer. Thank you. Our apprentices that have studied English and maths, and I think this explains it. Some of these quotes could be as part of our statement to say why you should do English and maths. And I also want to remind you that if you're thinking like you're not that confident with your own English and maths, you can study it with Aaron's adult team, and everyone can improve their English and maths. It's fully funded, whether you're in work or not, so please contact Aaron if you want to study English and maths yourself. Thank you. Is that it? Clear?
Yeah, fabulous.
Okay, thank you.
So, thanks very much, guys. That was really interesting. English is like my worst nightmare, and I was sat on a table where we were looking at English, so I definitely felt a little bit of pressure. I look forward to my feedback though, Neil, when you finish marking it. So, looking at our plan then for this academic year. So I've just put some pointers on there around what we will continue to do. So I've heard anecdotally a couple of comments around, oh, you know, we don't do maths and English. You might not do functional skills qualifications for your apprentices, but let me tell you, everybody does maths and English. And it absolutely needs to be writ large through your training plans as we start to develop them for this year. So everybody's going to be doing the initial assessment. The funding rules states that that is the case now. That's gone back in, Linda, hasn't it? It's like the okie-dokie, in, out, in, out. So it's back in, so everybody's doing them. Everybody will then be doing the diagnostic within the first 4 weeks to help us to be able to individualise that training plan for the apprentice by the time we get to that 4-week review. The maths and English needs to be evidenced in your training plan, and again this is stated in the funding rules by the month and delivered according to that training plan. So if you say in month 3 I'm going to deliver this, then you need to deliver that, or you need to update your training plan to reflect that. So as and when you might be tweaking and changing your KSBs, you need to think about maths and English within that as well. We'll be doing more detail around process over the next few weeks, so we'll keep you posted with that one. So key takeaways for everybody is that every one of the training plans needs to be updated. A bit like we do every year, we refresh schemes of work. Your training plan is basically the scheme of work for your apprenticeship delivery. So as you are doing your 25-26 updates, you need to be able to clearly demonstrate when maths and English is planned. We need a tight turnaround on this because unlike FE and HE, as this has been written into the funding rules, we need to be ready to go for May enrolment. Now the academic year starts on the 1st of August, so we're asking for these updates by the 31st of July, which means that we can then give MINF the information that they need to go ahead and start May enrolment, which will, well, it's already started for apprenticeships, but will start, you know, in anger from about the 18th of August. So that's why this is a tight timeline. So CMs who I met with last week are really clear on this, and I'm sure that they, if they are not already spoken about this in your team meetings, will be doing so over the next week or so. Maths and English team are there for you to work with as well, so if anybody wants the Maths and English team to come with them, sort of unpack and unpick the training plans to help them put in targets, then Rob et al. Are there ready and willing to support. Any questions on that? Sure. No problems. No problems.
We've had a discussion this morning before we came here.
Yeah.
We've got a level 3 learner who's nowhere near passing the functional skills. Yeah. The problem was they were on the M programme when we got GCSE results back, and now it's tough, we can't do anything about it.
So my first question there would be who delivered the IAG and put that apprentice on the programme?
That is the problem.
Yeah. So
and that's where the problem starts. The IAG, with that getting, they've then been signed up onto an apprenticeship programme that they're not at the level to do.
Yeah.
And then they're on programme, there's nothing we can do about it.
But that IAG sits with the curriculum teams, so you are determining who goes on your programmes. You might get a suggestion from BD of this employer wants these people. Well, that's not a given. That's then down to your expertise to go, are you the right person for this programme, and give that detailed IAG. So if you've encountered a scenario, I'm not going to use the word adopt because I hate it, that somebody else has done that and you're now trying to fix it, I understand that, but that is the consequence of not delivering effective IAG at source.
But there's no way that you can change that apprenticeship. So
Go on, Linda.
Which is a funding
Yeah.
to deliver effective IAG.
Sorry, yeah, Chris is asking, is there any way that we can change that? Well, that's what we've agreed at the beginning, isn't it? That's what we've agreed.
Programme, there's nothing you can change.
No. We'll have a look at that separately then.
Yeah, I'll come up, I can talk to
Good. Okay, right, so before we break, I can see some of you have already scanned the QR code. Again, let's have a little bit of feedback, please, if I may. And I've given us a chunky lunch time because I want, whilst we're all in the room, to have the opportunity to actually spend our time and do a bit of networking, get to know one new person. I've nicked the questions or the suggestions that we had at Wider Management Forum last week, so just talk to people who you don't necessarily talk to in your day-to-day. continue to build our apprenticeship community in your own personal network. So, feedback we'll have a look at when we come back after break. If we could have everybody back in the room for, let's go, is this the next session? It's BD on the next session, isn't it? So if we can go for 1:10, and then maybe we might get finished a little bit earlier.
More on apprentices moving forward to help them to achieve success. And I also want to look at why apprentices are important, mentorship is important, for not only apprentices, but for as the organisation as a whole. So, start with the basics. What is mentorship? Mentorship is a dynamic relationship where a more experienced employee provides guidance, support and knowledge to a less experienced employee. This relationship is built on mutual respect, trust and open communication. And I thought that this is particularly apparent when it comes to apprenticeships. As we know, apprentices can be at any stage of their career when they take on an apprenticeship. And at BNFC we deliver them from level 2 all the way up to level 6. It's as important to have a mentor in a junior role as it is up to a degree level. Apprentices are doing an apprenticeship because there is a knowledge gap there, and then therefore they need that additional support. We encourage as an organisation that each apprentice has a dedicated mentor alongside their line manager. We know that sometimes this isn't always the case because of small businesses, micro businesses and timescales, but what we try and do is encourage somebody to take on that mentor role when we're having conversations with our businesses. From conversations that business development have had with clients and interactions, we do find that where they do invest in mentorship and dedicate a mentor to an apprentice, they do have a greater opportunity to thrive. So why are mentors important? Has anybody got any suggestions or things they've seen of why a mentor is important to an apprentice?
Moral support.
Yeah?
Expertise.
Guidance, yeah. So I've collated some suggestions similar to what you've just said. So they provide direction and clarity, which is really important when an employee is going into a new role. They unlock potential. They build a support network outside of direct line management. I think this is really important because it gives them the opportunity to have a more informal and colloquial relationship with somebody, so they may feel more comfortable in expressing any concerns or challenges, things that they might not want to go to the direct line manager for. They share wisdom and experience, and they create a safe space for an apprentice to learn. Again, really important, with the focus being on mental health and well-being and workplace pressures, having that additional support mechanism can make a real difference to an apprentice's success. So, to back up these, I looked at some statistics, and these are all UK national statistics that I thought were really important and really emphasise the impact a mentor can have. So, 62% of apprentices reported increased confidence as a result of their apprenticeship experience, and mentorship was cited as a key contributor. 78% experienced personal growth, with many attributing this to having a supportive mentor or supervisor. 66% accessed additional training opportunities on completion, often facilitated by mentors who guided them toward development career paths. And 40% of apprentices from disadvantaged backgrounds said they wouldn't be in their current industry without an apprenticeship, and part of this was due to the mentorship they received, playing a vital role in retention and progression. I think this one, considering the locality of our college and where we are, where we're based, in terms of disadvantaged backgrounds and our stance on social mobility, I think it's really important. If mentors are having such an impact on apprentices' succession, then we need as an organisation to dedicate time to encouraging businesses that mentorship is essential. And approximately 75% of employees within senior leadership teams say mentoring played a key role in their success. So, we're going to move on to the task. There is a document on your table with like an aid memoir, but it's just to discuss in your team the benefits of mentorship by exploring what works well and what doesn't, and drawing on your own experiences. And then we'll work in groups, and then I'll get some feedback at the end. We've got 10 to 15 minutes for that. Feedback. I'm going to be making a note of some things so we can kind of collate what good experience looks like, or negative experience, if that's what you're going to be feeding back. So we'll start with this table over here, and then this table.
So we were just saying in terms of the first one there, what made the mentor effective, ineffective is whether they're actually wanted to be a mentor. Because a lot of the time it's, you will be their mentor. And they're not actually potentially given the option in that. And then it's the time to be a mentor, the capacity within their workload to actually have that time to sit down and actually give their full attention to the apprentice, and that can be approachable to them, as well as the training for it, which we were just saying you're in training at the minute for mentorship, so it's done here, but a lot of mentors are told you will be the mentor, run along and go and do it, and not necessarily train how to do it. And obviously this would make them relatively ineffective, or if they've got all those things, effective.
Yeah, brilliant. And I've heard that a few times going around the room about the training for it. We need to be talking to our employers about the opportunity to have training from internally from our staff, as well as what they've got in their own organisation, because without that training on how to be a mentor, then they're not going to have such a positive impact on the apprentices. So brilliant, thank you. Colette's table?
So from a positive aspect, we suggested that it protected relationships, professional relationships between line manager, the apprentice, as well as the mentor, so that you could allocate certain conversations would happen and it would protect that professional relationships as such. When it doesn't work so well, when that's not clarified at the beginning and the apprentice doesn't realise who they should be talking to, and it sort of muddies the waters slightly.
Absolutely, thank you. This table, front table.
So we had a sort of discussion, and then we thought about, so mine are like TA apprentices, and I also have a few early years apprentices. And I find that with my TAs it's more effective because a lot of them are assigned their class teachers as mentors. So they're there in the classroom every day, they see them, they can feed back to them, which we find is better. You get a lot more information from them in comparison to like the early years, who are usually assigned like management, who don't see them as much, who can't feed back as like in-depth and thorough. So we sort of thought about, it's good communication, and then we thought about, you know, how can we support this? And we put that maybe it'd be better if the mentor and a progress review rather than the employer, because obviously when you're calling the employer in, sometimes they don't have time and they don't know as much as like the mentor would in that situation.
Yeah, and again I agree, so it's the different role, and it's knowing the role that the apprentice is doing, and like say sometimes a line manager can attend and give an overview and listen, but they're not really immersed in that apprentice's role, so can't potentially kind of take anything from it to have an impact. So yeah, I agree with that really. This table, Mandy's table at the back.
Well, we had a similar discussion around the need for mentor training, in that you can't just set somebody off as a mentor without some support.
Yeah.
Particularly if there are issues that the mentor might have, or there might be something that's confidential and they want to also share and get support as the mentor as well, to support that they have that support mechanism. What we've observed with students that are with one particular organisation, they all have mentors that have been previous apprentices, so they're able to support them practically because they've been through the apprenticeship programme themselves, so that relationship works very well. I think other people have mentioned it's not the day-to-day potential line manager, and it's somebody that's more independent and can perhaps give a slightly more holistic and pragmatic support mechanism to the apprentices. What I've personally observed is we don't have mentors for all of the students that I'm supporting with progress reviews, but the odd one or two, you can definitely see the difference in terms of the opportunities that mentor is able to secure for them within the organisation.
Yeah, and that I think I mentioned it prior, for the career development and the pathway, that's where a mentor comes in. But you're right with the terms of the training. Somebody who, apprenticeships are actually quite difficult to understand, and they're very unique in terms of in a role within an organisation. And I think that understanding of apprenticeships needs to be there. So previous apprentices being mentors is a brilliant, and I think that's something we could maybe encourage to our employers, that's who becomes the mentor is somebody who's previously done an apprenticeship wherever possible. But yeah, it's the training need around that. It's definitely apparent. Okay, automotive table.
So we've got a couple of things. First of all, we really have got some proper evidence that an effective mentor, a company or a business that's got a proper, really effective mentoring program has a positive impact on the apprentices, and certainly in terms of first-time passes on EPA. Where we compare that to employers that haven't got the same approach to mentorship, there's far bigger challenges in terms of getting, seeing apprentices get through their APA, certainly first time. Then we've got issues like, not issues, but we've got situations where we've got mentors who wear the mentorship almost as a badge of honour, that they've got that additional responsibility within the company, they take it very seriously, and the success of the apprentice is a reflection, they see it as a reflection of their performance as well. But then we've also got, in a lot of our businesses, productivity is key, and where you've got a qualified technician who is also a mentor, they're potentially subject to not hitting bonus if they're not committing, if they're committing more time to mentorship than where they should be. So there's those challenges there as well.
Yeah, and again, that's one that we see, and it's almost, I suppose, a conversation with the employer, which is something business development could support with, or when you're in the employees talking to themselves, is that obviously we're not going to be able to change the bonus structure, but maybe if you are taking on that mentor role, your role in the organisation, it might have to change slightly in order to reflect that you're going to have to take that time out to support what will be for the greater good of the organisation. So, great, thank you. Hannah's table. Sorry, I'm choosing my notes here.
So we've discussed about ineffective mentors, and I think it's been mentioned from some of the other tables about the time that they would like to put into being a mentor, and the fact that in some instances they've not got the time to actually be present in meetings or catch-ups or reviews, for example. So obviously that's not necessarily effective for them. But also we had that conversation when we stood here about boundaries as well, and understanding that they're not necessarily therapists, and knowing where the boundary lines exist, and knowing who's in the right roles to be able to then support that person with whatever they need support with.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I've spoken to Pam, we've got a mentor handbook which I'll touch on, and Pam's creating like a combined apprentice and mentor handbook, and I think things like that will be really important, signposting to the employee assistance programme, or signposting to different areas where they can get the support, instead of knowing where the boundaries are between the apprentice and the mentor, and knowing where they need to get some external support for that. So yeah. Pam's table.
So the main thing we thought was the mentor themselves, they really don't have the time. That's kind of key. Knowledgeable, and also the benefits of it, just having that somebody else to let down, so like you need to ask those stupid questions, really key. And Dion also mentioned you put like name on bands, how mentors or lack of mentors. Maybe we could arrange some like cross college or mentors here that could support them.
Yeah, I've just had
usually picked up our training.
Yeah.
So they can support them in terms of mentorship for the actual standards, the practical start side of the standard, but everything else that comes with it is usually picked up by us.
Yeah, and that's the difference. I think we will see a real difference. So when I was speaking to this table about, say, BAE Systems or large level organisations who have an L&D team and mentors specified within their organisation to support, compared to the micro businesses who have one or two people who are trying to do everything, HR, finance, the actual day-to-day job, and that's where I think Colleen and I had a quick conversation about learning mentors specifically to support our SMEs in this space. So we can make it.
We know that model's worked in HA, that's been in place for a number of years now, and in other colleges not too dissimilar in size, they've introduced a apprenticeship learning mentor, if you want, so that everybody's got that safe space to go to, not just because they actually the trainer might be on the back to get
table, Cam?
It's all right. We have, but linking back to what a few other people have said, I think it's important that the tripartite agreement between mentor, mentee and the organisation, understanding that linking back to transformational and transactional, it's not just a transactional approach, one-way conversation. Mentors can easily learn from mentees, and making sure the organisations are aware the internal skills and knowledge that can be shared across departments from that. Really important to make sure we see the positive results.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Debbie's table.
We looked at the relationship between mentor and mentee, and not everybody can necessarily be a mentor. They've got to maybe have the right skills, but also they've got to gel with the mentee as well, and they're not going to be that for everybody. I think if they do gel and there is a good connection there, that they're honest, so that the mentor's honest with the mentee, doesn't feel that they can't say certain things. I think it's about building that relationship and making sure they can work together. So I think it's about that honesty and connection.
Yeah, which then really separates it out from a line manager responsibility, doesn't it? It's about the more informal kind of relationship and the trust there. Great, thank you. Kerry, take it.
As you So we've seen a positive change recently with apprentices being mentored. I think a lot of it's come down to the initial IAG, even before the sign up. So as you know, we're quite heavily involved with the IAG vacancy comes through and starts being initiated. And it's during those conversations we explain the importance of having a mentor. So in terms of the positivity we've seen, mentors being involved in progress review meetings, same as what the other table said over there. And I've sat in a review meeting with the line manager and the mentor and the apprentice, and get feedback from all the roles as well. And you just get that feeling of support work.
Yeah.
So it just enhances over the journey. I was thinking kind of try for it hands out and results as well. And the apprentice knows that they've got other support avenues as well.
Yeah, exactly. And
Same as with the table, we've had apprentices then that have gone through the programme and then they're mentoring the new apprentices coach them. So it's like just all that skill and experience and knowledge that
perfect. Well, this brings me nicely on to the next effect. So this is how a mentor can have an effect not only on the apprentice but on an organisation as a whole. So earlier this year, Blackburn Park College were asked to present an award at a national automotive accident repair. Oh, no, I did say I do not want this picture on. Well, that is awful. I'm going to have to turn it off. So we were asked to present this award and we could choose a category. So it was either Apprentice of the Year, Employer of the Year or Apprentice Mentor of the Year. We'd celebrated apprentices previously, which had been brilliant, and we find it quite difficult to celebrate our employers because our larger employers tend to overshadow our smaller employers just due to the amount of size of business they send our way. So we thought we'd go down, a decision was made between the automotive curriculum team and business development to opt for the apprentice mentor. So we gave all our employers the opportunity to nominate. We received 14 nominations back in a really short period of time, and we internally shortlisted them to 5 finalists. We decided to put together an external panel of stakeholders to make the judging. So they were all out of the automotive industry, outside of the automotive industry, sorry, but all had experience with working with apprentices and mentors. Every single stakeholder came back to us to say how impressed they were by the calibre of the mentors and how inspiring they felt reading the comments that they've made. So I just want to share a few quotes from employee feedback. I mean, would it help to read them out? Read them out. Adam Ball was from Develop Group. Adam has played a key role in mentoring his apprentices, all of whom have made notable progress under his guidance. His hands-on coaching and genuine passion for their development reflect his commitment to their success. One apprentice, inspired by Adam's support, gained the confidence to apply and compete in World Skills National Competition, an opportunity that once seemed out of reach. This achievement highlights the powerful impact of Adam's mentorship. We spoke to Adam on the night and he gave us more context around this. This apprentice barely spoke when he arrived. He didn't speak in the workplace And it wasn't more out of shyness, it was more reluctance. He wasn't interested and he wasn't engaged. Adam managed to connect with him on a level and then brought out.
Good afternoon, you lovely lot. Right, the first thing I want you to do is just stand up. Everybody stand up. Sweets. So I shouldn't give them out now because you probably right now need a bit of a sugar. I do apologise. So, what I'm going to say about today is, there is nothing in this presentation that is radical. It's not heard it before, you might even go, like we don't know this already, okay? Because it's about the better relationships we have with our employers, the better outcomes our apprentices are going to have, the better retention we're going to have, the better progression opportunities, and the better income we're going to do, the better investment we can do in BNFC. So that isn't kind of new news, and I get that. But what the purpose of today is that I want us to be able to look at, if you had a mirror there, I want you to look into the whites of your own eyes and ask yourself some questions. And I want you to be really honest about it. And I'm talking about you as individuals, not you necessarily in your curriculum areas as a team, although that is part of it, but you as an individual. Do you put your customers, your employer partners first every time? Are we, when customers need things, are we agile and responsive? Or as agile and responsive as perhaps we should do? Because I think we've got a great partnership. Just shout it out. For you, what sums up a great partnership with an employer? Anybody? Collaboration. Loyalty. Transparency. Teamwork. Flexibility. Honesty. Absolutely. All of those things. All of those things are so important because people want to feel valued, don't they? They want to feel like they've been listened to, that we value them, that we look after them, and actually we really care about their business. They're not just a number. They're not just a, because the fact that they're investing in apprenticeships in any way, shape or form is really important to us. We need more of them. So the better experience they have, the better it is for all of us. So, in keeping with today's format, we will have about 10 minutes on this, and I think you can either do this as curriculum teams on your table, or you can do this as individuals. It's entirely up to you, but we will be asking for some proper feedback on this. It's sort of, what are the challenges that you face in terms of being able to be responsive, being able to give that great service? What stops us from doing that? Because that's important that as BNFC, and one of the things I need to take away from this is try and support you in those challenges. What's one thing you're going to do, what strategy, but what is one thing you're going to do to improve how we deal with employers, and how will you implement it? One of the things I wanted to say is that there's 1,066 employees at BNFC. And one of the things you know a lot, some of you will have children who go to clubs, some of you will play sports, some of you will have a massive network, just in your own, as a person, individual network. And what I want to ask you to do is, when you're at the cricket club, or you're down at gymnastics, you're at swimming, or you're playing your football, or whatever you're doing, there will be lots of people there who have, who you know, or related to, that have a business. I'm not asking you to go and do a business development job and do a hard sell, but as you're chatting, have they ever thought about doing a placement? What would they consider work experience? Do you know about apprenticeships? Is there anything more we could tell them? Because those businesses, we've spoken to so many businesses recently who have said, do you know what? The apprentices bring so much to my business. They bring so much. It's not just about us giving them information. Those apprentices come along and they're kicking the backsides of some of the existing staff because they've got new techniques, they're enthusiastic, they've got so much to offer. And small businesses need that. So yeah, you've got to invest in time, but investing in an apprentice gives you so much more as a business. So one of my asks is, when you're in those networks, I say not hard sell, I don't want you to be boring everybody to death about the love of apprenticeships, but you've got a massive network. And if we're 1,066 people brought one apprentice in, think how powerful that would be. Just think about how much we could invest
in your future in BNFC, everything else. And that's actually not unrealistic, because I think within all your networks, that is something that's actually doable. So it's just something, one of the takeaways I want you to think about in terms of what you can do, just as part of your everyday kind of life. I mean, I must admit, only because I was asked, not because I was boring people, but I was telling people about degree apprenticeships for about 2 years, and now all of a sudden all those parents didn't want to know. All of a sudden those parents are going, right, can you just tell me how does that work? How does my son or daughter get one of those? And I don't want to pay the university fees and blah 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 blah. So quite often, if you can influence parents, they are a massive influence, aren't they, of what their children do. So again, if you can make an influence there, that will make a big difference. So if we can say, I'm going to say 10 minutes really. Just write down, because we are going to actually put that on a QR code, I think, after this, but just, I'm not going to go to every table because I don't think we'll have time, but I am going to just ask a couple of you for a bit of feedback. Okay? Go, thanks very much.
Or engage your apprentices mentor, mentor training, progress review, allocate one at onboarding, brilliant, recognise efforts, so some great suggestions there. And then what one thing are you going to do to strengthen your employee partnership? Now the word cloud obviously pulls out the work that has been put in most, so it says employees in the middle, but clearly it's about employers. So we've got improved communication, well, most of them are around communication. So thanks very much for that feedback. I will just now break it yet again, and probably Lucy, hold on, is it going to work? There we go. Right, so the next session, do you want to get me all right in that view, or do you want to go press whatever button you need to press? I should have just brought my device. I don't want to use my device. So, graveyard shift goes to Becky, and we're going to be looking at what we do to support our apprentices, and then we've got a bit of information, a bit more information around competencies, which is new next year. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, good afternoon. And as Colleen said, I think people look at the thing and I thought, God, agenda, I'm on last again. And it's probably it can be the most controversial topic, sometimes inclusion. So it's a bit of a hot potato that people kind of don't know what to do with. So for those that I haven't met before, so I'm Becky and I'm Head of Student Support, Wellbeing and Inclusion. The team that we have is FE and HE SEND teams, disability services, and then we also have the safeguarding and the wellbeing team as part of that. So it's quite a huge team, and for those that you don't know, we've got 113 colleagues in learning support. So the thread amongst all the teams in college, and I think I probably could have started with Sarah's last slide, you know, that importance of sort of collaboration, stuff like that, and that co-working. So by me coming here today, I think it's the first apprenticeship conference I've done, so excuse my nerves, but the really important bit is us working together, and that came with the sort of title, I thought it was clean actually, the barriers to bridges, and I think that's been really important for us. I know the apprenticeship team, you've obviously come on leaps and bounds. I've been in this role about 18 months, and there's been considerable changes just in that short time, but this work has been going on a lot longer than that. So again, Colleen said I'm here to talk to you today about a bit about what we do and about a really new exciting sort of system we've got. I say exciting system, I'm the least technological person in the room, but it is a really exciting thing for our students and hopefully for yourselves. So I'm going to start off just on your tables, and it's literally a minute and a half, talk about some of the barriers that your apprentices face in education. So start from the beginning, there's no wrong answers. If you feel that it's been a barrier, talk about it on your teams, and I'll just ask 1 or 2 tables to feedback on what they might be. So barriers that your apprentices might face in education. Carried on all afternoon because it's probably the bit that causes you a lot of the work that you do. So I'm going to start with that team, because the table over there, because I've only got some around team on it. So start with this table here, if that's all right. You go.
I said lack of family support.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes school experience as well.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so absolutely. So lack of family support, so somebody coming in with those, and particularly the younger apprentices coming in and supporting them to get what they need, so they put a barrier up, and then sorry?
Respect, like following rules.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So obviously going into a workplace and there being obviously sort of rules in place that our students, our apprentices don't want to follow. Really good points. So one at the back.
So obviously there's quite a few areas which I've included, but one of the things that sort of we discussed was them not disclosing it. So like that being a barrier in itself, because obviously when people do eventually make progress or not make progress, it then becomes apparent that there's actually something that we can do to support that individual.
And sometimes they don't know. They don't know what their need is. They don't know that. So a lot of our younger apprentices, particularly, are here with no diagnosis. But our older apprentices as well have obviously had a lot of time out of school, so might not know what to call it, might not know how to describe it. So what they need is, so therefore don't ask for it. So there isn't a label, or there isn't something that anybody's told them that it is. So they don't want to disclose it, do they? Because they've got nothing to disclose. So that is a real barrier. Thanks, Hannah. Let's take up here.
We've got a few English and maths skills, some that have been mentioned before, like a positive role model, which also goes with external influences, gangs, etc., and learned behaviours.
Yeah. It's really funny actually that each table now has been something around sort of that behaviour or unwillingness to, or it's a lack of that social support. I won't go across every table, but yeah, really good points. That lack of family support as well is massive, and the maths and English. So we know about Blackpool. I don't need to tell you about Blackpool. I don't need to tell you about the English and maths levels that our students and apprentices come in with. But that aligned with a large number of our young people having speech and language communication difficulties, which can create an emotional barrier because they're not able to express themselves effectively. They don't have the English and maths sort of skills as makes sense. They feel like they're behind. The peers are behind expectation of what it is to be an apprentice in the workplace. So all those things build up barriers. And a lot of the times, our young people either, as I said, haven't been assessed or haven't had anybody sit down and speak to them about their individual needs. They come to our college and they've often had something to boost their English and maths to get them through an exam. But other than that, very little support, and that's a common feature. So, equity versus equality. So this is something that I feel that we get mixed up, and I'm just talking to exec colleagues actually around what we do. Do we start referring to equity or do we refer to equality? So equality in education is having the same experience, obviously, but equity is making that experience balanced and appropriate to the individual. So it refers to fairness and justice, providing equal opportunities and resource to all students, regardless of the background and their abilities and circumstances to reach their full potential. It recognises that students have diverse needs and disparities, and we need to create a level playing field. So not every student needs the same or the same opportunities. It doesn't work. Equity should not be confused with educational equality, which means providing each student with equivalent resources. So it isn't about equivalence, it's about equitable resources, it's about equitable support. So that's what we want to look at today. So in our apprenticeship team, I've asked obviously for some data really, so that you can all have a bit of an overview of what we've got. Our active apprentices with SEND this year, we've got 396 currently, and 57 are supported. Total number, because I know we don't do August, I know we don't, Colleen will kill me for that, so I put both on. Total apprentices on programme with SEND this academic year has been 468, and the total number of apprentices supported is 97. those numbers do look low, but actually they align with other colleges. So when I sit on national groups and local groups, regional actually, this is typical. What I want you to think about in your groups now, what are the barriers to your apprentices accessing support? Alright, so if we've only got 97 out of 468 this year, what would be the barriers be to those apprentices? Do they just not need it? Have they declared something they don't need support for? What is it? So in your tables, and I will come back, but it is just a minute this one. Why might your apprentices not take up support after declaring a need?